Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is my first ever Q&A live stream that I'm actually going to be able to successfully do. I tried doing one a while back, but had a lot of trouble with the actual software I was using. But now that I have a nice software that I'm using, StreamYard, shout out to them. That's what we use over on Punch Card Investing as well. Thought I'd squeeze in a Q&A here since I put out a survey, or I guess like a Q&A form a while back, to see what you guys wanted to know of my take on, wanted to know about me, and thought I could just go through some of that now. Partly because I was planning on having another video posted today, but I've been having some problems with my computer today, to where one of my hard drives, I have two hard drives, it is not working at the moment, and that's where all my video files are. So a little bit of a panic there. We'll see what happens, but thought I'd at least take a moment to do a live Q&A, since I do want to get a video out to you guys on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday if I can. That's the schedule I try to follow, and I'll squeeze in more videos otherwise. And also, today was just a rough day because yesterday, let's see, yesterday was Mother's Day, which is great, but then I got my vaccine, which was fine then, but man, this morning I just got walloped. So it's been a very long day. I'm just getting through the kind of feverish feeling. So that's kind of behind me now. I'm feeling much better than I did in the morning, but man, brace yourself if you haven't gotten the vaccine yet. But now I should be all set for the future, one would think. So, anyways, let's dive into some of these questions. Here's the form I put out a while back. If you had a burning question, you could have posted it here. And of course, if you guys in the chat have any questions, definitely feel free to leave them there as well. But the first one here from Make Money Ragov. What college did you go to after high school? So I went to the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign. It's a Big Ten school, so I think it's 35,000 undergrads and something like 50,000 undergrads and grads together. So a very big school. And I studied history and economics, and I did that in 3 years. So I did the double major in 3 years because I had a bunch of AP credits from high school. So if you happen to be in high school, highly recommend loading up on AP credits if that's available at your school. And even if it's not, you could take the exams on your own, because that saved a ton of time. Ended up saving a ton of tuition dollars as well, by not having to do that fourth year. Then I could go right into law school, which is what I got a full ride to. So that took away a lot of the risk of going to law school, and I shaved off some time in undergrad by only doing 3 years. So that's where I went for undergrad, University of Illinois, and I went to Vernon Hills High School. So that's like 45 minutes north of Chicago. That's where I went before that. Um, Trying to think if I'm missing anything there. That's pretty much my entire academic career. Oh, and then for law school, I went to Chicago Kent College of Law in downtown Chicago. So uh, like a mid-tier law school, nothing too fancy, but I was able to get such a really strong offer there because I had decent test scores and decent grades from undergrad that I could pull in and put together a pretty solid app, and it paid off. And I just wrapped that up in December. So my academic career appears to be over. So unless I want to get a little fruity later on in my career and get some supplemental degree or not or whatever. That's not really what I'm planning on doing, but I'll never say never. Here's a question from our man Karan Gurnani, who I will be doing some sort of collaboration with very soon about Equity Commonwealth, since they just announced their big merger with Monmouth Real Estate, and he is a fellow shareholder of Equity Commonwealth. So plan on doing a collaboration with him this week sometime. We'll keep you posted on that. Anyways, would you start a second channel on YouTube to share your souffle and other dessert recipes? Yeah, I've definitely thought about that. For those of you less familiar, on April Fool's Day, I did um, I did a parody of like a Gordon Ramsay video making souffles. And I do like cooking a lot. I've definitely gotten into it over this last 2 years. Really, is where I've really putting a lot more time and effort into it, and it's a lot of fun. So I enjoy it. I think I don't really plan on doing another cooking channel, but I definitely will do a cooking video once per year, most likely on April Fool's Day every single year on this channel, because that's fun. It gives me an excuse to put those videos together. I don't think I'd be good enough to do a consistent amount every single week or something like that, but once a year, I will happily do something like that. Anyways, on to investing with Frank. How do you think about diversification versus concentration, and how is your portfolio structured? Hashtag punch card, referring to punch card investing. If you guys haven't checked that out, that's our value investing live stream that Karen's on as well. And Investing with Tom is there, and Brad Kellner. We have this joint live stream that we do every single week on Friday nights here in the States. It's a very worldwide audience with a worldwide panel, since it's 5 different time zones all around the world, is what we're coordinating on PunchCard. But definitely, if you're interested in stock investing or value investing in particular, definitely check that out. We have a lot of good conversations and get a lot of good questions as well from the audience. Um, Anyways, to the actual question, diversification versus concentration. So it kind of depends on your goal. My view is that diversification is defensive. You aren't really going to get an extra delta on your return. It's or delta compared to the rest of the market, because when you diversify, you are taking the returns of the market. And that would also mean that you would hopefully avoid the individual stock risk that would come with picking individual stocks, or concentrating into a few stocks. So it's defensive in that way, in that your ceiling is probably limited, and then the floor is also limited. So it's more defensive compared to something like putting half of your portfolio into one stock. That one stock would take off, and then your whole portfolio takes off too, but it could also plummet, and that would fall too. So I see concentration is more offensive. So maybe if you're, this isn't financial advice by any means, but maybe if you're earlier on in your investing career, concentration probably makes a little more sense if you're trying to really catapult those returns, obviously within reason and doing measured risks and not investing money that you need anytime soon. But for long-term investing, concentration, I think, is a good offensive tool that is especially useful earlier on in a career, in my view. And then maybe as you get later on in your career, I kind of think of like that Ray Dalio approach, where it's extremely diversified all across the world, many different markets, just growing with humanity, not necessarily beating humanity on a return basis, but just growing with it. That's all you need, and that's plenty once you already have a bunch of wealth. That's the way I kind of look at it. Um, However, I am still fairly diversified, because I kind of have. Well, first off, I came from the passive investing school, coming out of high school. That was like the first materials I really, when I was learning about investing in general, everything was pointing towards passive indexes. And don't get me wrong, passive indexes are great. Something like a Vanguard low cost passive ETF or index into the S&P 500 or something like that. Those are great products, but it depends on what your goals are. So I was thinking that, oh, okay, indexes are impossible to beat or very unlikely to beat, and that was kind of my thinking going into it initially. So a lot of my portfolio still kind of reflects some of that, and I think I will leave my retirement portfolio, so like my Roth IRA that I started when I was out of high school. I will leave that in passive indexes, most likely, in the event that I am wrong in my own stock picking, which I've started to do much more in earnest over the last 12 months, because I need to have something to fall back on. And I'd rather just have a safety net. Sure, it might not be humongous, because I didn't do concentrated high quality bets, and I was just doing diversified low cost index funds, which again, by no means are a bad sort of product. It's just that I'm not going to get massive returns because I'm just following the market, and the market is typically going to capture all the bad companies, and then it's going to capture all the good companies as well. And then over the long term, you'd expect the good companies to outweigh the bad, or at least that every company is getting a little bit better with productivity. That's kind of the goal with an index. And if I'm investing for 40 years, and until I retire or something like that, or until I can withdraw from a Roth IRA, I should say, um, then I'm fine with letting that go in a passive index for a long time, since I'm not going to touch it anytime anyways. With a concentrated portfolio, it's much more active. It's a lot more laborious. You got to pay attention. When you're just doing passive index investing, you don't really care. You fire and forget. That's the whole appeal to it. But again, there's costs to that. You're not going to beat the market because you're investing with the market. And also, there's a chance that the market does not do well for a very long time, and there's not much you can do about that. Whereas maybe with a smaller concentrated portfolio, even in a bad market, there are always going to be winners. And if you can find those winners, then you are in really good shape. Of course, it's much easier said than done. That's where the extra time comes in when it comes to concentration in a portfolio. So I've slowly been moving towards a more concentrated portfolio as I find stock investments that I like. And of course, I will be very concentrated into my real estate portfolio. I own 2 properties right now. I'm looking for a third this summer. And I imagine that a large portion of my portfolio will be in, say, a handful, maybe a dozen properties sometime in the next handful of years. And that's going to be very concentrated. It's going to be a large portion of my net worth is going to be in those properties. And you could kind of look at it the same way as each property is like a stock, I suppose. Each property is its own little business. It's obviously it's a different ball game, but same sort of philosophy, I guess. So I will be quite uh, concentrated in that case, and I think if you have some sort of edge, the edge is what you want to concentrate in. For me, I think I have an edge in real estate. Maybe it's not a humongous edge by any means, but I think I know what I'm doing, and so far it's been good. I have plenty of experience in property management. I'm going to start officially as a real estate attorney on June 1st is when I'll start full time, and I've been clerking for the last really year and a half now. Um, or I've been in the real estate law game for quite some time. So that's kind of my edge. I have a lot of real estate background. I have real estate connections. My network is very heavily tied to real estate people. So that's if I have an edge, I think that's what it is. Outside of like very abstract things, like I think I'm pretty disciplined, but it's hard to say. I haven't really been through massive swings in the market very much since I'm still pretty new to this, relatively speaking, compared to a guy like Warren Buffett who's been around for many decades. I have not been around for many decades in the investing space, so um, I just have to remember that and be very analytical in it, take things in stride. Especially when you're doing concentrated portfolio, you have to analyze your mistakes especially closely, because those mistakes can really cost you when you don't have many mistakes to make in a concentrated portfolio. And then I guess I've been kind of going around the other half of Frank's question here, spending quite a bit of time on it. That's how is my portfolio structured? I always break that down every single month on the first of the month with my net worth series, where I have like a big tracker sheet in the description every time. So if you want to take a look at what my exact holdings are, stocks, real estate, debt, that's all there. I think if you go to jackduffley.com/net worth tracker, it will take you to that sheet and you can take a look for yourself, see what my holdings are in that given month. And that's my exact portfolio breakdown. You'll find that about a third of it, well, not a third, but a large portion of it, but less than a third, is in metals and commodities right now. And that's kind of a shorter term play for me. There's some downside risk, of course, but with all the quantitative easing going on and all the inflation that I think is coming and is already here in many cases, I think it's good to have some exposure there. Once again, nothing is financial advice. What's good for me might not be good for you, and what I think is good for me might not even be good for me. So um, I do have a large portion there. Otherwise, it's probably it's kind of depends on how you distribute the debt in my portfolio. But I have those two properties which make up probably about a third of the portfolio once you subtract the debt from them, and then stocks make up about a third, and then stocks make up probably about half, with half of the stocks being, or so I'm trying to do this off the top of my head. I'd say half my portfolio is probably stocks, and a large portion of the stock portfolio is in metals and commodities and metal ETFs and that sort of stuff. And then the rest would be everything else cash. I have a little bit of cryptocurrency, very little, like less than $2,000. So I have a few options in Robinhood at the moment that I've carried for quite some time now. When I was dabbling in kind of options trading, uh, and that's kind of it. And then there's a few things here and there like taxable accounts, but that kind of falls under stocks as well. So that's what my portfolio looks like. Again, jackduffley.com/net worth tracker. Then you'll be able to see everything that I have at any given moment. Always trying to be transparent on this channel, so you guys can understand my moves in context. Since I might say something, but it might not make sense for someone else to look at it the same way as I do, because I have a very different situation. Everyone's situation is different. So that's what I'm always trying to do on this channel with that. Anyways, on to the next question. Thank you, Frank, for that one. Make money rag up again. What did you get on the SAT? I did not take the SAT. I took the ACT, and that was back in 2014 or 15. I got a 30 or 31. I don't even remember if I took it twice. I think I took it twice, and I think I got a 30 and then a 31 or something like that. So yeah, that's what I got in the ACT, and that got me into University of Illinois with no scholarship. So for whatever that's worth, I don't know how things have changed now, and I don't even know how many states use the ACT, because I think Illinois, my year was one of the last years that used the ACT. So I think we use the SAT now in the state, but I don't know. I haven't been in high school in a while. Daniel, have you looked into the VIC write ups on Thunderbird Entertainment, BBCP, and ARDX? If so, any thoughts on those listed stocks? I hold a small position in all three, may increase my position at Thunderbird. So, no, I don't have any thoughts on those because I haven't done my research on them. Except I think I've heard of Thunderbird Entertainment. Let me just double check here. What do they do? Production studio that owns global award-winning scripted, factual, and animated programming. Okay, maybe I haven't. It sounded like a familiar name, maybe just because of Thunderbirds. But anyways, I don't know. I can't really give you any thoughts there. You probably know more about the businesses than I would, and that's something that is important to me when I'm investing in stocks. I really want to understand the business because that's what a stock is. It's a share in a business, and if I don't understand the business or it's complicated, and I don't put the time in to actually learn about what it is, then I'm not going to invest in it. That's practically gambling if I don't know what I'm actually investing in and what the actual value of that thing is when I'm investing in it. So no, I don't really have a real comment there. Sorry, but if I'll definitely take a look at these though, since they haven't shown up on my radar at this point. So I'll take a look. Frank again, which single investment would you suggest to a friend that knows nothing about real estate, stocks, or any asset class, but wants to invest a large sum of money? Hashtag punch card again. Punch card investing. Go check that out if you haven't already. It's a good question. Okay, so the key thing here is that you know nothing about any of these things. If you knew nothing about investing, the single okay, this I'll give a cop out answer and then I'll give probably a more like substantive answer. The cop out answer is the single investment you need to make if you don't know anything is in yourself in reading up on things and learning about whatever the investment is. Because my thought is if you especially early on in your investing career, you probably don't have a ton of money or a ton of liquid assets. I know in this example, it says they want to invest a large sum of money. So interesting that they have no financial wherewithal, but have all this money. Maybe they got an inheritance. I don't know. But my thinking is I want to be prepared so that when I do get money, I already have a plan for it or some at least general structure for how it's going to be distributed, whether it be, okay, my next $10,000 that I earn, 5 grand of it is going to go towards debt. 2 grand is going to go towards saving for a down payment, and so on. So that when the money does come, there's no temptation to spend it because it already has been assigned in a way. I'm probably being a little idealistic there. But it's something like that to where a fixed portion or some portion of whatever paycheck you get or whatever money you get, if you get a windfall, have a plan for it already so that you don't have to think too much about it when if and when it does happen. But anyways, the cop out answer is to actually study up. So figure out what it is that you might be interested in. Start reading up on general finance books and watching podcasts or listening to podcasts, watching videos. Great way to get a start on investing. But of course, there's the danger of just knowing enough to be dangerous, which I think is a huge problem in investing, especially in the stock market, with how easy it is to get started with very little money. And people think they know what they're doing, but they absolutely don't, and they're just guessing, and then they get burned, and then they're turned off by it after that, and that's sad. You don't want that. So you really want to dive into it. For me, when I was an undergrad, I started ripping through finance books because I was trying to figure out what's the secret sauce here. I did well in high school, and now I'm picking a major for college, and I'm looking at like salaries as one does. What can I expect to earn, or at least I'd at least hope someone would do that before diving into college, spending all this time. I was trying to see what each major career path would earn, and I noticed that there was always kind of a ceiling. I was like, well, I don't understand. Like, if I'm going to be an attorney and I'm a top tier attorney, I might make 500 grand a year, which is great, no doubt. But that's not like what some of these mega billionaires make. So what are they doing? And I started trying to find that answer. And then, of course, I discovered investing from there. They're not making a bunch of earned income. A lot of it is passive or otherwise investment returns, or it's a business they run. It's very scalable. Whereas your career is generally not very scalable. It's trading your time for money, which has its place, no doubt. And you can have a fulfilling career and you can make a good living and you can use that to invest in other things or help out society in some way. So I'm not writing off jobs here. But I was just trying to figure out why there was this ceiling. And then I realized the way to get over that ceiling or through that ceiling was investing. So I started ripping into to all sorts of investment content. And I spent during an internship I had, it was a bit um, mundane every day. It was kind of sorting through spreadsheets all day, and it was not a very good internship. I'll say. Met some really good people though, so that was good. But the job itself was pretty. Using like a 1980s system in the year 2017. So like it was like a 1989 computer system, and I was like going through all the tabs on that. It was very ridiculous. But anyways, I used all that time to listen to the Bigger Pockets podcast mainly, which is a big real estate podcast for those of you who aren't familiar. And that was just fantastic because now I could go to work, make my whatever $12 an hour or whatever it was, some whatever my intern wage was for that summer. But then on top of that, I was getting a serious education in real estate investing, sometimes upwards of like 7 hours a day of podcasts on like 1.5 to 2x speed because that's how I roll. Some people go even higher than that. So I was soaking in all this information while I was working a job, and that was fantastic because I came out of that internship first off like just itching to get into real estate because I felt so much more prepared. Of course, you're never going to be truly prepared just by reading or just by going into podcasts or whatever information. But that was humongous for getting me over um, fears, uncertainties, and just learning tips and tricks that proved helpful later on. Um, it got me thinking about house hacking, which is what I did for my first deal. This condo I'm in right now. We since stopped renting out the room that's on the other side of me right here, but we were renting out that room. It was a two bath condo. But like, had I not soaked in all this education during my fairly menial job, then I probably wouldn't have had that same idea, or I wouldn't have thought to do that at all, or just I would have been maybe just doing something that's not as efficient or not as going towards my goals. So education is really that foundational step to do anything. Because you could tell someone to invest in anything, but if they don't understand it, first off, they might not care about it, and also they might just make a flat out mistake that was completely avoidable if they just put in a little bit of due diligence or learned a little bit about the game. So that's my education rant. It's super important, especially when you're starting. But even now, I've done a couple real estate deals. I'm still no mogul or expert, but I'm definitely much better than I was before deal number one. I'm better than I was before deal number two, and I'm continuously getting better. And not just in real estate, I'm getting better with stocks as well, learning more about that, seeing what great investors are doing, constantly studying the world around me and what great investors are doing, because you can learn a lot of things from that. And also, you can question what they're doing since not everyone's perfect. No one is perfect. And that's really the only way to get better in anything. And investing is no different. All right. Now, if I was going to pick some asset class to this question from Frank, um, if there's a single investment that's not like something more abstract like education, I'd probably lean. I might think of the Peter Lynch approach. It also kind of depends on where they are in the world. If you're in the U.S., buying a house could be solid, only because in the Peter Lynch world, if it's someone like this who's not particularly educated in things and just needs to get rid of the money tomorrow, trying to find a house might be a good deal because people tend to be more careful with buying a home and they understand it a little bit more. And they're going to have inspectors come in. The lender's going to force them to appraise the property, and you get a lot of due diligence built in, even for someone who's not particularly savvy with something like real estate. So that would be my knee jerk reaction. That's what Peter Lynch says in his book, One Up on Wall Street, which I do not have on my desk. But that's his thinking is since people tend to be careful when they're buying homes, that's probably a good investment to do before you start trying to pick stocks, because then you have to understand a business, you have to understand basic accounting generally, if you're trying to look at a balance sheet or something like that. Not that it's particularly hard to understand, but you got to do that due diligence and keep up with the company, which is, it can be hard to do, boring to do, depending on how much you care about investing. Whereas at the home, people are very particular about it. And I think it's more likely that someone who's a complete novice would probably do better at finding a decent deal on a home than they would be finding a decent deal on a stock if they're just starting out. That's my knee-jerk reaction. Otherwise, more broadly, if you're not going to pick stocks, broad index fund, great way to go. Even if you could make a much higher returns through some other investment strategy, if you're a complete novice and don't know what you're doing, I would not recommend picking stocks. I would not recommend just throwing the dice. You might as well just try to grow with the rest of humanity over time. That probably makes the most sense for someone who has no idea what they're doing. Of course, you could also hire a financial advisor if you can find one who's actually decent, and that could be a great way to go too. So that's my thought there. Good question though, very good question. Um, Managing games, how much wood would woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? Great question. Let's go to the comments here. Anyone else have any other questions? Thank you, Jadiri. Thanks for being so transparent. I appreciate that. That's the main goal I have on the channel. Like I said, um, trying to be as transparent as possible through it, so you guys can understand the context that I have behind my investments. That's the whole purpose behind the net worth series. Plus, it keeps me accountable too. It's not to brag at all, because why would I show like I'm not worth a ton of money? I'm granted I'm in a good position compared to what I could be at, but uh, it's uh, it's not as though I'm like waiting till I'm worth some huge amount of money and then showing it. Because then it's like, well, how'd you get there? And I like having this documentation process in there too. So I'm really excited to keep doing that through over the next few years, and hopefully for my whole life, as if it makes sense to keep doing it, just to have that whole log of all of my investment moves, or at least most of them, in pretty excruciating detail compared to not doing anything like that at all. So thank you for that. F Mong. When you make it rich, what would you want to do with your time? That's a good one. And I appreciate the certainty when you make it rich, because I'm confident. I'm confident I'll get to my goals, or at least close to them in the time frame that I'm going for. Because I think if you really go at it, if you have a median level salary and you cut your expenses back, eh, give it a couple decades, and where you're really going at it trying to save up, like you can make some huge progress, which a lot of people just don't do. And even at a small scale, $5 a day, you can get a lot of compounding going over a full career. So definitely don't be discouraged if you don't have some fat salary, or if you have a lot of debt. You just have to start chipping away at it. If you give up, then yeah, of course you're never going to get over it. But anyways, to the question, what would I do with my time? Well, I definitely want to do real estate developments sometime in the future. Um, that's going to take a lot more savvy and experience, and also money. The development would be really cool, but of course it has to make economic sense too. That would be great, but I'd really have a focus on the nonprofit side that I eventually want to get into. Um, what I do exactly, I'm not too sure. Nonprofit housing sounds like an awesome ordeal. Maybe get some partners together and we run a nonprofit housing development firm. That would be awesome. Also, my family had um, some history with ALS. So being able to do ALS research or contributing to that in some way would be really awesome as well. Doing fundraisers and big events, maybe even getting if my YouTube channel ever grows to a huge number, like getting followers involved too. That would be so cool. So that's kind of why I'm thinking very long term. Shorter term, I'm just going one. I don't want to say one. It is one day at a time, but I try to think in like year long terms, or few month terms. The future is only so certain. I have longer term goals I'm trying to get to, but to get to those long term goals, I got to focus on these kind of intermediate goals, which are trying to reach that $30,000 per year passive income, which would be great because that would give us a whole layer of flexibility, so that if something happened to my job or my wife's job, we have that layer to fall back on. We can also start doing things more aggressively in investing. So that's the first goal we're trying to get to. Do you ever worry about the Dunning-Kruger effect when you're investing money? I want to make sure I'm not mixing up the Dunning-Kruger effect. So let me Google that real quick. Oh, so where you overestimate your abilities to do something. Well, yeah. Uh, you have to be sort of arrogant when when you pick your own investments. You just have to be. You have to be confident that you are right. All you can really do is be as careful as you can. This is where looking for I don't want to say confirmation bias, but looking for top performers in any industry that you're trying to get into. What are they doing? Not saying go copy them, but you can. Shameless cloning is a fantastic strategy for many people with stock investing, um, among other things. But this is where like I really enjoy reading biographies of great investors, great business people, great people in general. You'll notice patterns and trends when you study that sort of stuff. That's one thing I really enjoyed with history. Just seeing trends, seeing what's worked over time, seeing what hasn't worked, perhaps more importantly, seeing how humans really function as a society and as individuals. Like you can really learn a lot there, just by reading up on great people. Um, so seeing what they're doing can be a great starting point to also avoid your own biases. Because you might not agree with what some great person has done, but you have to ask, why is the great person doing it? Does it make sense? It gets you thinking in a different way potentially. You get that another person's perspective. So that's the only way to really overcome that that sort of the Dunning-Kruger bias that you would have. Um, you just have to keep challenging the idea. You're making an argument essentially when you pick some sort of investment. You're arguing that this is going to be better than just leaving it in cash or using some other investment for XYZ reasons. And you have to have those XYZ reasons really firmly established in order to avoid this. Um, and of course, you can always know just a little bit, like I was saying earlier, if you know just enough to be dangerous, that's always super worrisome in investing because uh, one mistake can really cost you, and it can also turn you off of investing, and that in itself could be terribly detrimental for the long term. If, say, you have a bad experience in your 20s and then you don't invest for all of your 30s and 40s, and then you realize, wait a second, I need to invest now because I'm trying to retire soon, but I don't have anything investing because I was turned off of it in my 20s because I made some dumb decisions when I didn't know what I was doing. So you have to be really careful with that sort of stuff. That's why that's why I kind of lean towards that passive index investing if you're just starting out and you don't really know what you're doing, and maybe do a portion of it towards passive indexing and then a portion towards picking. That's kind of what I'm doing. And really go for what you think your real edge is. Don't think you're a genius in everything because that can be super tempting. Um, like I'm no genius in stock trading. Granted, I don't think they're really like day trading and that sort of stuff. Granted, I don't think you can truly be an expert in that, but that's that's my bias. I don't think you can really do that. And if I was trying to do that, I probably wouldn't do very well. Or if I was going into some industry that I knew like just a little bit about, but not really anything, I wasn't particularly interested in learning about it, then yeah, it's not going to work very well. And that goes for areas of investing as well. Uh, Studying can certainly help to get over that risk. As with anything, education is a great foundation piece for everything, and you're always getting educated, whether it be on a secondhand basis or through actual experiences on a firsthand basis, which are, I think, much more valuable, but they can also be much more costly if it's a particularly negative lesson. Uh, but thank you for that, JD. Again, does anyone else have any other questions? Otherwise, I think we can wrap it up pretty soon. And I'll definitely have another video out on Wednesday. I think talking about shorting the dollar and inflation. That could be a pretty. I've had some thoughts on that with how to actually short the dollar. Like, what does that even mean? And I won't give away too much about it, but that's probably what I'll be doing on Wednesday. So stay tuned for that. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel and you still stop by for the live stream, first off, thank you and welcome to the channel. I cover lots of stuff about personal finance and investing. So if you like that sort of content, definitely take a look around the channel. And if you like what you see, be sure to subscribe. So until next time, though, I'll probably try to do another one of these Q&A live streams at some point in the future. I don't know how often I'll do them. If you guys want to see more of these types of videos, definitely let me know. And I'll try to make it more into a routine, maybe doing something like a Sunday Q&A live stream every week or every other week. That could be a lot of fun. I'd enjoy doing that, but you guys got to want it, and then I'll do it. Otherwise, until next time, take care.